Today I'm going to be doing something a little different and talking about a very uncomfortable subject that nobody really wants to dive into, and that subject is miscarriages. And the reason that I'm having this conversation with you guys today is because I had a miscarriage. I'm actually kind of still going through the miscarriage, more on the lighter end of things, but I wanted to share my experience because I feel like before my miscarriage, I wasn't exposed to many miscarriages, I guess. I didn't know anyone who had it, or I thought I didn't know as they surfaced later. And no one had really spoken about their experience with me, which made the whole experience seem that much more foreign to me when I was going through it. When you have a miscarriage, then other people connect with you and they tell you, oh yeah, I had a miscarriage, it's okay. Or they'll say like, yeah, I had 2 miscarriages before my 3 kids, or et cetera, et cetera. Like suddenly you learn of everyone who's had a miscarriage because it's something that people don't just post about. Especially on social media, we post about our happy things. You'll post like, hey, pregnant, after you had 2 miscarriages, but you'll never post about the miscarriage. And that makes sense. But I'm not much of a private person, and I feel like it's my duty to kind of post this video today, if just in case anyone who's following me does go through a miscarriage, they know that it's something that is common. According to my ER doctor, 1 in 5 pregnancies end in miscarriage. It's common. A lot of other women have gone through it. I've gone through it, and I'm going to share my story with you today so you have someone to connect to and something to think back on if you were to go through this. So this isn't meant to scare anybody. If you're pregnant and you're before 12 weeks, that doesn't mean that you're probably going to end up in a miscarriage. The probability is in your favor, but there is a chance, and it will have nothing to do with you if you do. I feel like I knew of miscarriages, but I wasn't prepared to have one myself. Like I knew, wow, some women may have miscarriages, but last thing I thought was that I was some woman. I thought that was some other women, but honestly, it could be anyone, and everyone has to be prepared to know what it feels like, or at least how to comfort someone who's going through it. My miscarriage process happened at 8 weeks. The baby I was growing stopped growing around 5. It just took my body a couple weeks to realize like, hey, this isn't working. Let's get rid of it. And that was last week. And just being transparent, miscarriages suck. Like really bad. I can't even express it. It's gonna be hard for me to kind of convey what I was feeling at the time to you guys because it's just such an unmatched feeling. I have personally never experienced anything like the loss that I felt during this miscarriage. And I'm able to speak on it here now, but y'all should have seen me last week. I was a wreck. I was like, someone help me. I was even spiraling into depression, and a lot of women do. I was like shutting myself down from family and friends. I was so lucky to have Jalen by my side. And I say that because a lot of women go through miscarriages by themselves. Or maybe they go through miscarriages with a partner who and isn't that compassionate about it and just kind of makes her feel bad for feeling bad. I was lucky to have someone like Jalen by my side because Jalen made everything about me. Like he was like, Queen, how can I help? I'm thankful that that's the approach that he took because I also know that he was going through a loss. Like he was excited that we were having a baby. It was going to be his baby too, and that was taken from him as well. Kudos to him for understanding that while he's dealing with the loss, I'm dealing with the loss on a different level because I felt the baby growing inside of me and the changes are happening to my body. And I appreciate that he knows that, and I know that that's really progressive thinking because not a lot of men would recognize that. And a lot of women might not even have that support to begin with, or any support. Even family and friends, like I had a lot of support from my family and friends. I'm grateful for all the support that I've had. I recognize that not every woman does have this support. And that's why I want to make this video because if you're going through this, I know what you're feeling. And I'm saying that with the bottom of my heart because not everyone's going to know what you're feeling. And you're going to feel alone. You're going to feel misunderstood. You're going to feel like no matter what, no one knows what you're going through. But I do. And a lot of women do. 1 in 5 women know what you're going through. And you're not alone. Based off my conversations that I've had with several healthcare providers and gynecologists, doctors, I've spoken to a lot of people. It has nothing to do with you. Miscarriage will happen just because, let's say, Sperm meets the egg. It made it a little further than it should have, but it wasn't supposed to end up with a baby, and your body recognized that and let it go. It has nothing to do with how well you ate, the vitamins you took, what time you would exercise. There's so many theories, and it had nothing to do with those theories. It's just something that happens. It's like, for example, having sex on all your fertile days and not getting pregnant. You know, like it's just something that happens, and there's nothing you could do to stop it. And there's nothing you could do to change it. It's just something, unfortunately, that is, and you have to cope with it, and you have to deal with the loss. And it sucks. Talking about how much it sucks, I do want to take a moment to talk about what not to say to somebody who's having a miscarriage. Top one on the list of what not to say would be unsolicited advice. Don't start telling me about what you think I could have done, that next time make sure that you eat an orange every day, or next time make sure that you're chopping up radishes and putting them in your daily salad. Like, I don't care about what you think I should do the next time that I get pregnant. And there's a couple reasons for that. One, why would you think I'm going to try to get pregnant again? For all you know, this is the only pregnancy that I'm ever going to have, and it ended up in a loss. So stop talking about future tense. People need to take a step back and realize this. A miscarriage is not a failed opportunity. That's not what it feels like to the person having a miscarriage. A miscarriage feels like a loss. You felt special. You felt important. You were growing a baby inside of you. You were bringing somebody into life. And then all of a sudden that's taken away from you, and you lose the baby, and you just experience yourself bleeding and losing the child that you thought you were going to have. You are grieving. You're sad. You just lost your child. This isn't the time to talk about next time. This isn't the time to be like, oh, well, this is what you could have done or should have done, or these are some recommendations for the future. None of that applies. Treat this as you would treat someone who's mourning something. The best advice I could give you, if someone were to come up to you and say, hey, I'm having a miscarriage, or you were to reach out to a friend and they're like, I just lost my baby, the best thing you could say is honestly, wow, that sucks. I'm so sorry. What can I do to help? That's it. Literally it. That person might need some help because it is very emotionally, physically draining. It hurts. It's uncomfortable. And it's very sad, honestly. So yeah, we might need some help at home, or maybe we need some help moving some things around. I personally couldn't even get out of bed. Maybe that person might need some help, yes. I promise you what we don't need is unsolicited advice. We don't need to hear that. What it feels like physically. So I remember the beginning of last week, I still felt pregnant. My breasts were swollen. My belly felt full. Like, I still felt like I was carrying a child. And then all of a sudden on Tuesday, I lost that. And I found that so weird. I was like, hold on, why aren't my breasts swollen anymore? That's odd. That same day I started spotting, and I had a breakdown. And I'm going to share the breakdown with you because I recorded it thinking I'm going to share this now, but I'm going to be one of the few women who are bleeding and have cramps but still manage to have a successful pregnancy. Because unfortunately we hold on to hope that way, because the last thing you're going to accept is that you're actually having a miscarriage.
So I think I'm having a miscarriage. This is so sad because I don't know yet for sure. But like, everything's lining up with it being a miscarriage. I started spotting yesterday, and today it got a little heavier. But it's still not a lot, but like my boobs were like really, really sore in the beginning of the week, and now they're not. It's like I feel like I could just feel like I'm not growing a baby anymore. And it's the saddest thing. It's the saddest thing. I know they say not to get excited when you first get pregnant because it's not really confirmed until you're after your first trimester. And you never really get why people even say that just because you're like, I know I'm gonna take care of myself, I'm not gonna have a miscarriage, but it has nothing to do with how you take care of yourself. It's just, I guess, waiting for the confirmation now. And I know it's like, oh, you could be positive and just feel like it's gonna be okay, but I just feel like realistically the symptoms I'm having and then the symptoms I no longer have kind of just point at one thing.
And as sad as that was, and as sad as I was last week, I'm okay today. You definitely go through the stages of grief, being in denial, being angry, until you kind of transition into acceptance. It sucks. It's taken me about a week to, I wouldn't say get over it, but I guess make peace with the situation. It's a very uncomfortable and sad thing to go through. I feel for any woman who has gone through it or any woman who's going through it. I'm sorry it's happening to you. I know it sucks. And I know it feels like it's the end of the world. You feel like you failed somehow. And it's a horrible feeling to have. You'll get through this. It's gonna be sad and it sucks, but you'll get through it. You could grieve as long as you want. If you want to be sad for weeks, for months, be sad for weeks and months. You're grieving. Like, how do people deal with a loss? Eventually, you have to like reel it in just for like mental health purposes. It's okay to be just checked out for a little bit. You've lost someone. It's sad. Miscarriages are very common, and this is something I wish I knew. I always thought it was like, oh, a miscarriage could only happen to someone who's not following these sets of directions, but it has nothing to do with how great you take your prenatal or how healthy you're eating or how well you're taking your afternoon walks. It has nothing to do with that. Again, 1 in every 5 pregnancies end in a miscarriage, and it just had to do with it just wasn't a right match for you. The sperm met the egg, swam up there, and it just didn't work out. Your body's like, oh, this isn't going to be a full-term baby. Removing. And there are people who I now discovered had miscarriages around me and have gone on to have a lot of healthy kids. It's unfortunate. It's a sad news to realize that you're part of the negative side of the statistic. But if your goal eventually is to have kids, the comforting news is you can continue to try again until, let's say you have multiple miscarriages, you feel mentally exhausted, and then you just don't want to anymore. That's fine as well. I do find that there's a lot of random women forums you have to really search for that are really supportive. Women offer their stories, and I even posted in a blog just kind of saying what I went through, and some random woman responded saying, I'm so sorry, that sucks. I went through the same thing. You're in my thoughts. Just something simple like that. I was like, thank you. Feels good to know that somebody understands what I'm going through, because you really feel like nobody understands, because they're just like, oh, well, it was just a miscarriage or whatever. And it's like, it's a huge deal. And honestly, people don't like talking about women's health anyway. Like, people are like, oh, that's weird. Like, just anything that's around, like, oh yeah, I have my period. They're like, oh, first of all, women brought all y'all people onto this world. Everybody in this world is here because a woman has brought you here. A woman carried you for 9 months and birthed you. That's why you're here. It shouldn't be a foreign topic to talk about the health associated with that. It really shouldn't. Especially if like 1 in 5 women are having miscarriages. Every woman has a menstrual period. Why is it a weird thing? So I was really open about it. Like at work, I was like, I'm having a miscarriage. It's like a weird thing to talk about. People are so weird about it. I'm hoping more people do come forward when they have a miscarriage and they start saying what it is, and it makes people feel, at least other women feel more empowered to, 1, share their story. 2, if they are facing a miscarriage, it helps them understand that it is normal. It happens to a lot of women and you're not alone. One of the forums that I found was in the Flow app. I typed in miscarriage and I also typed in bleeding. There's so many posts on women going through the same thing. Or honestly, there's positive posts on women who were having the symptoms of a miscarriage and then it turns out that they didn't miscarry. There's a community of women who are supporting other women in this, and I just feel like we need to bring that to social media, because right now it's something that you have to search for. It's something that you have to be like, oh my gosh, who else has had a miscarriage, whereas like so many people have. Definitely wanted to share this with everybody. I want to make sure I bring visibility. Like Jalen mentioned, wow, this is what it's like to have a miscarriage. That sucks. What if I gave a cashier an attitude and it just so happens she was having a miscarriage? Or what if a waitress was being an ass to me and I was an ass back, and then it turns out that she couldn't find anyone to cover her shift and she was going through a miscarriage? Like, there are so many things to think about that you're just like, I'm never gonna even have the slightest attitude towards a woman again. Like, she really might be going through it. And unfortunately, it's something that we just keep in our community of women, and we just talk about it with each other. But not me. I'm gonna talk about it to everybody. I told my manager just like that. I'm like, hey, I'm having a miscarriage. He's like, oh, okay, I'm so sorry. He was really supportive. To some, that might be oversharing. I don't think so. I think that it's something that needs to be spoken about. People need to know what we go through and the discomfort and the sacrifices that we make in order to bring everyone onto this planet. So just some stuff to think about. And if you were following my page just because you were like, yeah, ooh, I love the dance videos. While I love to dance, my main purpose has always been to be a voice for women. So if that's not something that interests you, just making sure these two fingers didn't have nails on them, because I'm missing some of them and it looks a little weird. My purpose is really, I know that a lot of people are more private about their lives and people don't like sharing everything, but I'm someone who doesn't have an issue with sharing most of the things that happen in my life. So because I'm someone who doesn't have an issue, I feel like it is an obligation of mine to make sure that I share things like this with you guys, because this is something that even people who love oversharing still kind of keep to themselves. And I want everyone to know that, hey, I went through it. If you're going through it, it's okay. We'll get through this together. That's it. No, you guys weren't trying to hear all that on a post here, but just thought I'd share my story. If anyone has any questions or thoughts, just comment and let me know.